You wake up in the middle of the night, somewhere around 3 in the morning, not because of a nightmare, not because your phone buzzed. You just wake up, lying there in the dark, fully alert, for no reason you can name. If that's ever happened and made you anxious, convinced something is seriously wrong with your sleep, here's something worth knowing. For most of human history, this wasn't a malfunction. It might have been completely normal. Historian A. Roger Ekirch spent years combing through diaries, court records, sermons, and medical texts from pre-industrial Europe and found something strange showing up again and again. Across centuries and across countries, people didn't talk about sleeping through the night. They talked about a first sleep and a second sleep, separated by an hour or more of quiet wakefulness in the middle of the night. During that gap, people prayed, talked with their spouse, tended the fire, visited neighbors, mended tools, or simply lay there thinking in the dark. Nobody described it as insomnia, and no doctor of the time prescribed anything for it. It was just what nighttime looked like, an unremarkable middle act between two halves of rest. Ekirch's research suggests this segmented pattern, 2 sleeps with a waking period between them, was the ordinary structure of a night's rest for centuries, only fading once cheap. Reliable artificial lighting pushed bedtimes later, and compressed sleep into a single block we now treat as the only normal way to rest. So is that the deep, ancient evolutionary default? Here's where the story gets stranger than most people expect. Neuroscientist Jerome Siegel at UCLA wanted to test that exact question directly, not by reading old diaries, but by studying people alive today who still sleep without electricity, clocks, or scheduled bedtimes of any kind. His team attached small sleep monitoring devices to volunteers from 3 groups: the Hadza of Tanzania, the San of Namibia, and the Tsimane of Bolivia, all hunter-gatherer or forager-horticulturalist societies with no meaningful access to artificial light at night. The results, published in 2015, surprised a lot of sleep researchers who expected to find the same broken-up pattern Ekirch had documented in old Europe. These groups didn't show the segmented first sleep, second sleep pattern at all. Most nights, they slept in one continuous block, roughly 6.5 to 7 hours, going to bed several hours after sunset rather than the moment it got dark, and waking before sunrise. And despite no clocks, no consistent bedtime, no sleep tracking apps, and no concept of a target 8 hours, they reported almost no chronic insomnia at all. Put those 2 findings side by side, and you get a genuinely strange picture. The famous 2 sleeps pattern documented by Ekirch looks less like a fixed evolutionary blueprint baked into every human nervous system and more like a specific cultural adaptation to candlelit, pre-industrial European nights. Meanwhile, modern hunter-gatherers, living closer to how humans lived for most of our species' existence, sleep in one block and rarely worry about lying awake. The natural ancestral sleep pattern people argue about online may never have been a single universal thing at all. Now go back even further, past written diaries entirely, into the deep archaeological record, and the picture gets even stranger. At Border Cave in South Africa, archaeologist Lyn Wadley led excavations uncovering bedding roughly 200,000 years old, among the oldest known sleeping surfaces ever found anywhere on Earth. It wasn't just a careless pile of grass tossed onto bare rock. Beneath the grass mats, researchers found thin, deliberate layers of ash. Modern experiments show ash can help repel crawling insects like ticks and lice, meaning these early humans may have intentionally built insect-resistant bedding, choosing and layering their materials with real foresight, 200,000 years before anyone could write the idea down on anything at all. That's not bare survival. That's a basic mattress technology, refined enough to solve a comfort problem most people assume nobody back then ever thought about. So let's reconstruct a night. You're part of a small band, somewhere on a savanna, roughly 50,000 years ago. As the light fades and the air cools fast, the way it does once the sun drops, your group settles close around a central fire, bodies arranged in a loose circle, shoulder near shoulder for warmth and reassurance as much as anything else. Someone keeps the fire fed through part of the night, not out of strict habit exactly, but because an untended fire means cold and a far higher risk from anything moving in the dark beyond the firelight's edge. That person dozes lightly between feeding the flames rather than dropping into deep, uninterrupted sleep like everyone else. A child stirs and is quietly resettled by whoever happens to be nearest, not necessarily a parent. Somewhere in the group, someone wakes for a stretch in the middle of the night, the way Ekirch's pre-industrial Europeans once did, and simply lies there, listening to the fire crack and the slow breathing of the people pressed close around them before drifting off again without any concern at all. Nobody in this circle expects 8 uninterrupted hours of silence and total solitude. That idea hasn't been invented yet and wouldn't make much sense out here anyway. Anthropologist Carol Worthman, who studies what researchers call sleep ecology across traditional societies, has documented exactly this kind of pattern again and again worldwide. People sleeping in groups rather than alone, multiple generations sharing one fire or one room, frequent brief wakings treated as entirely unremarkable rather than a problem to be solved. In many of the cultures she's studied, a parent or grandparent half-waking several times a night to check a fire, a child, or a sound outside isn't a sleep disorder. It's just what a shared, watchful night looks like. Here's the counterintuitive twist almost nobody expects. The version of sleep most people today treat as the correct, fully natural baseline. One long, unbroken block, completely alone, in total darkness and silence, for a fixed 8 hours, isn't humanity's universal ancestral default at all. It's a relatively modern, specific, often Western ideal, shaped by electric light, private bedrooms, and rigid work schedules that demand a single predictable chunk of rest squeezed between 2 shifts. Which makes the modern mirror a little uncomfortable to look at directly. You wake up at 3 a.m., and instead of just lying there the way your ancestors likely did, you check the time, feel a flash of dread about how exhausted you'll be tomorrow, maybe pick up your phone and start scrolling, and quietly convince yourself something inside you is broken. Sleep tracking apps reinforce this further, scoring your night like a test you can fail, rewarding only unbroken. Solitary stillness as good sleep, and flagging every natural waking as a red mark against you. An entire industry of supplements, white noise machines, blackout curtains, and prescription medication exists partly to chase a sleep pattern that may never have been the species-wide standard to begin with, built instead around a fairly recent expectation of total isolation and total silence for a fixed 8 hours straight. So the next time you wake at 3 a.m., for no clear reason, lying there fully alert in the dark with your heart beating steady and your mind oddly awake, try holding 2 thoughts at once. You're not sleeping the way most humans throughout history slept, in one tidy sealed-off block. But you're also not necessarily broken for doing it, and you're certainly not alone in it across time. You might simply be doing something far closer to what humans have actually done for most of their existence than the people sleeping straight through the night, completely alone, completely undisturbed, in total silence, ever truly were.